All right, chapter 5 already. We are moving right along. You're still with me, way to go. Okay, we are into our first type of business entity, and that is sole proprietorships. They are the most simple and numerous type of business entity in the United States because they are the easiest to form. The problem is that even though they're the easiest to form, they still don't make the same kind of money that corporations do. And they're really an extension of the individual. So going back to the example of the law office of Emily Lynch Morissette, unfortunately, that's me. There's no separation. Now, I'm fine with that because I can buy liability insurance. But some people aren't and they want to incorporate. There is liability and it's unlimited if you're a sole proprietor if you don't have liability insurance. So just because I'm in an area that has a lot of risk, I choose to just stay a sole proprietor, not incorporate, and have liability insurance. In other states, attorneys can become a limited liability corporation. In California, I cannot. If I could, in California, I probably would do that extra protection, but since it's not allowed to me here, I don't become like a professional corporation, because usually that implies more than one attorney and that owns it. Okay, so to form it, you typically don't have to do any special paperwork other than a Schedule C on your individual tax returns. And that is one of the reasons I like it, because it's a lot easier taxes. I just take my profits and then my losses of the business each year that I'm in business. The public document, I do have to do a business license, and in the city of San Diego, that's about $80, about $76. And that just kind of lets everybody know where they could potentially find me if they needed to, potentially sue me. Yay, great, not. But it just makes sense because sometimes people have businesses where they sell things through mail order. They might be harder to find. They might have a VO box. And so it just gives the public some assurance that they might be able to find some of these business people if they're not so savory and honest and upfront, and maybe take some people's money. The private document would be an agreement with myself. So, I mean, obviously I've sat down and thought about how I want my business to be, and that's sufficient. Financing. So, it's harder if you're one person than if you're a corporation to get financing. And if you don't have a ton of money, then it can be really hard to get some loans if you need them to start your business. And then I can hire somebody from HR to run that part of my business if I want to, but typically most sole proprietors run their business themselves, which can be a double-edged sword, because what if they're not good at business? Alright, so the liability is definitely the number one disadvantage to being a sole proprietor. And I'm insured up to a certain amount, because after a certain amount it gets so expensive. But let's just pretend the amount is $1 million. So if I got sued for more than $1 million, my personal assets would be at stake. My home, my bank accounts, any assets I had could potentially be lost in a lawsuit. So that's why most people, if they are sole proprietors, are going to have a decent amount of insurance, probably anywhere from $300,000 to about $1 million, because they want to make sure that they don't lose everything if they get sued. Some businesses don't have much money anyway, but they're still worried about that lawsuit, so they go ahead and insure anyway. Now, it's not easy to sell my business. I mean, my business is me. Who am I going to sell it to? So that's another downfall of the sole proprietorship business entity. One of the benefits, I think, is that I don't have to share the profits or losses with anyone else. I just can take it off my own taxes, and I don't have to worry about everyone else's paperwork. Another really nice benefit is typically the tax situation is a little bit better for a sole proprietorship. The tax rate is less typically for a sole proprietor than a corporation. And if you want to end a sole proprietorship, typically you would stop filing your business license and do a final Schedule C to the Internal Revenue Service. A franchise is an interesting proposition because it's halfway between being in charge of your own business all by yourself and then kind of having this framework of a reliable, trusted, known business to help you potentially do well. So like an Auntie Anne's pretzel shop or McDonald's, you would buy a lot of their product and sell it, but the McDonald's brand carries, a lot of knowledge. People know it, throughout the country. So you might be more successful if you did a franchise. So one of the biggest things is it a good franchise agreement before you decide to get into that? So how do you get those things McDonald's sells? How do you get those little minced chopped up onions that go on their burgers? Is there a certain way you're expected to train employees? Are you not allowed to compete against McDonald's? How much money do you have to put up front? How are you allowed to use the intellectual property from McDonald's of how to make a McCafe? And could you go to court against them if there's a problem, or do you have to do arbitration?